Yeah, I do have to work outside of normal hours. It comes with the job. I know that he needs me outside of working hours, and that's fine. I'm contactable on my phone pretty much 24/7. I've always got my laptop on if I need to jump on it outside of work and just look at something or send an email. I can cope with it, it's fine, as long as you have that downtime as well. You've got to get the work-life balance right, it's really important, otherwise, you know, it can affect other people that you live with as well. You've got to think about that.
Back in Melbourne, I was regularly doing quite long hours, but I never actually saw it as something negative. I loved my role, I loved the company I worked for, and it was a work-life balance, bit of give and take. If I, worked an event, excuse me, and I was there earlier or later, then I was able to have the flexibility to take that time off later on.
Are you managing your time effectively? So if you're sat at work until 7 o'clock every night, why are you sat at work till 7 o'clock every night? I might leave after my boss, but generally it's 5 minutes after him, because I know that once he's gone for the day, most of my work should be wrapped up unless there's something big going on. So if you are spending a lot of time giving up your free time because you don't get paid, working through your lunch hours because you don't get paid to work lunch hours, then you need to look at the circumstances why that is and perhaps ask for some help. If I need to work through lunch once a week, then I'll do it, because that's how it is. Sometimes you have to do these things. But if it's a constant, then I'll look at why and how I can solve that.
I think if you're going to be working late hours, you're owning that, you're responsible for it. So you've got a pride in finishing that job, getting that task done, delivering on time. I think that's hugely important, and then you feel that you've actually done your best and you've delivered. Other reasons for working outside hours, maybe CPD, you may go to a course, you may do something in your lunchtime, you may work on a project over the weekend.
Yeah, I definitely find that both myself and other PAs I know are doing extra hours. I think one thing that's important with this is to have the communication with your directors and agree what is in scope and what is out of scope. So there are some PA roles that have fantastic salaries attached to them, but it's very clear you will be on call between these hours, and they are extremely long hours. And then I think at the same time, sometimes we have to be disciplined as assistants. So for example, one of my managers will email at any time because he's always on the go, and he's chair of several different companies, but it's making sure that we know the expectations, that he doesn't actually expect a reply immediately. I think sometimes as assistants we have to be quite disciplined, because if you get into the habit of always replying at 11 o'clock at night, midnight, later, then that becomes the expectation. But actually I think these things can often be resolved by just having quite a professional and honest conversation with your manager.
I find that PAs in general, and that's certainly for myself, I get asked to do things that I haven't got any training for, and generally I don't think this is a problem. I think it becomes a problem when you're not being supported to do these tasks. For instance, if you've been asked to read over a contract where you've got absolutely no legal experience whatsoever, and that does happen, how can you be confident in what you're reading and what you know if you haven't got the opportunity to say, I'm happy to do this, but I'll need somebody to talk about the finer points with. One of the things I recently had to do during an office move was connect up all our computers to our servers and the internet, something that I'd absolutely never done before. But I spent the day shadowing my boss, who did know how to do it, and he gave me a quick run through, and from then on it was my job. So now something goes wrong with the computers, Leanne, can you come and fix my computer? Leanne, can you come and fix my computer? So it has its plus sides, but it also does have its negatives as well. And I think it's about getting the support to make sure that you're doing it properly.
I do think that PAs do a lot of the time take on tasks that they haven't been traditionally trained for. I think as well as being challenging, it's quite exciting because, we get to be involved with so many different aspects of the business. I personally, I'm a great believer in developing myself and training. So I'll always, if I feel like there's an aspect of the role that I need more training in, I'll, always ask for it. But I recognise that that's not always possible in some businesses, and PAs are great at just getting on with the job.
I'm a big believer in putting yourself forward and grabbing new opportunities, so I quite enjoy that, and I think a lot of PAs put themselves forward for projects that perhaps they don't have traditional project management experience, or they might not have qualifications in that, and really enjoy it. So I I kind of like the way that the role is evolving and you can kind of grab those extra challenges, but at the same time I know there are experiences where PAs feel that they've really been thrown in the deep end and kind of the support and the training isn't there. So I guess I would say always try and believe in yourself. Don't say no to something before you've tried it, but at the same time, you know, do voice your opinion if you really think that you have been given a bit too much.
Well, I actually had that in my most recent role, where after being there for 6 months, they had a restructure and I was actually asked to move into a dual role and be a marketing coordinator. Now, I've never worked in marketing. Yes, I have experience in events, and I was organising all of my organisation's public relations activities. I didn't have any background in public relations, but I guess I saw it as a new challenge and I got on with it. I did my research, I spoke to different members of the team to, you know, give myself that knowledge that I needed to do the role properly. And, you know, for example, in my last role back in Melbourne, I was doing human resources. Now, I've never studied, you know, human resources, but it was just one of those things that I enjoyed the variety and new challenge. I thought, why not, you know, it's something new, why not try it? But we're definitely getting involved in different areas, and I've definitely seen it where maybe new employees haven't been hired because it's just assumed that the personal assistant will take on those duties, and that's fine, but I do think we need to be compensated for that as well.
I've certainly taken on a lot of tasks that aren't generic PA roles, such as property management and all the legal implications that go with it. Buying and selling properties, you know, you don't expect as a PA to be going into a role and having tasks such as that thrown at you, but it's been fantastic learning all about it, and it's just another string to my bow.
That's really interesting research, actually, that the PA is the happiest, yet sort of working longer hours and doing tasks that they're not traditionally trained for. I think the reason that PAs are so happy is because they are, by personality type, I think that, you know, they're very good with people and they're very sociable. So they're speaking to lots of different people, getting lots of different ideas, doing lots of different things.
I am very happy in my role, and, you know, if there is overtime or I'm taking on different, you know, tasks and projects that aren't part of my scope, to me, I don't see that as a negative. I don't see that as a burden. Like, I'm so passionate being an assistant, and so many assistants I've met recently feel the same way, that we just see it as a way of upskilling ourselves and learning a new skill, a new area. Potentially we could move into a new department. You know, I do think that if you don't enjoy your role, then it's going to be a burden. You'll see it quite negatively, but I'm just like, hey, you know, they want to invest in me, and that they see I obviously have the potential to grow in this role, so why not take on something new? So I don't see it as a negative at all, I guess, doing extra hours or doing extra projects.
Because you give that, you also get something, you get some recognition, you get directors coming to say, thanks Fatia, for you handled this part very well, thank you so much for your support and things like that. And it makes us happy, of course, to have all this return. That's very positive, and it's a circle, you know, the more you give, the more you get, and it creates a lot of positivity.
Yeah, I think PAs are probably happier in their roles because it's a fulfilling role. You're helping somebody else, you're helping somebody to achieve their goals, and you can see the rewards from it as well. You know, and you're encouraged along the way. It's a great role, it really is.
As an assistant, you're relied on to be very efficient, and I think efficiency is a fantastic skill and it's a very important skill for an assistant to have, but I think if you blend that with humour, you become a lot more personable and a joy to work with, rather than sometimes I think being quite difficult to work with if you're only about efficiency.
You've got to be able to speak to people in a way that they understand to get the best from them, to get what you want done.
In the role of an assistant, you have to have very good interpersonal skills and, you know, high emotional intelligence, because you are dealing with very important people that perhaps expect a certain level of interaction that isn't expected at other levels in an organisation. And I think you are constantly dealing with people and also often representing other people, so you really have to be very aware of how your messages will be received, because often you're not actually communicating from yourself, you're communicating on behalf of someone else. And I think you have to be very, very careful with the messages you give.
I definitely think having, emotional intelligence skills is very important as a PA. So many times we're the eyes and ears for the executives we're supporting. For example, if you're the PA to a CEO, a lot of times they might be tucked away in their office or they're traveling. They're not sort of seeing what's happening with the team. And, you sort of have to read between the lines, and someone's saying something but they're meaning something else. Someone might be upset, and it's just realizing, is it something work related, is it personal? And you are dealing with so many different personalities, and I guess you're kind of like that glue sometimes that holds the office or the team together.
Constantly, I find in my days, one minute I'm dealing with my boss who's on this calm plane, and then I'll have somebody run up to me and they're just frantic because something's gone wrong for them. And if I was somebody who wasn't able to adapt to those emotions, then I'd really struggle in my job. So having that high EQ is definitely something that's beneficial to us, and I think really helps us with our roles.
I think, the interpersonal skills, they have to be there already. It's not something you can fake.
I think emotional intelligence is hugely important. I believe that without that, you can't possibly supply a service to somebody if you're not aware of what it is that they want, and you have to put yourself in their shoes. If somebody's asking for something, you have to be able to deliver it. If you don't have a comprehension of what it is or what they want, then it would be very difficult to do your job successfully. Emotional intelligence is hugely important because I believe that's the basis for everything we do. We have to understand it and we have to be able to deliver something.
I think a skill is kind of being the eyes and ears for your manager. So you need to be aware of when people need a bit of a boost. You need to have a good sense of if morale is dipping. And I think you can really help your manager have that better rapport and better relationship with other people, whether that internal colleagues or external relationships, if you have a good sense of how that person is feeling and how they're reacting towards your manager. And at the same time, I think it's great to be a trusted confidant to your managers on how they're coming across.
I'd like to see PAs get recognised more in their organisations. The profile of the role being raised. So if you ask someone that doesn't necessarily know what a PA does, they'll generally, some people have said, oh, you make the coffee then, and it's about people understanding that we are the executive's right hand in most cases, and we are important to an organisation. I think that's something that I'd really like to see going forward.
It's really, really important for PAs to look at how they can reward and award themselves constantly. So we always need to be looking at how can I show myself that I'm really, really pushing myself, and entering awards is a fantastic way to do that. It absolutely changed my career. I do think that PAs occasionally miss out on the financial rewards that come from working in an office environment. It's very hard to measure how a PA is doing their job, especially when target-based bonuses are awarded to other staff and PAs don't really have targets as such. So in those situations, I think it's really important for PAs to take time and set themselves some targets. And when they're sitting and having their appraisals and their performance reviews, they set those targets out with their line managers and their bosses, and they say, these are the things that I'm going to achieve this year or this quarter, and these are the things that I would like to be rewarded on when it comes around to bonus time. And it's a very, very difficult conversation to have, but you need to value yourself and you need to realise that the work that you're doing is very, very much worth a bonus, and if they're handing them out to others, they should be handing them out to you.
Our performance can be measured in many other things, Just maybe the welfare we provide, the well-being we provide to the team.
I think the fact that PAs get awards now says that they're being acknowledged as career-minded people in their own right. This is actually a career. This isn't just a job, and that's a wonderful acknowledgement of what they do and the work they've done, and appreciation.
I think it's 1/5 of the world's population is in the administrative profession. That's a stat that I've seen. And it'd just be fantastic that people could see, you know, from high school that it's a valid career path, whether you do education or courses to get there. You know, it's such a fantastic role to be in. I think there's the opportunity to get involved in so many different areas, and you can move into different roles if you'd like. And it's just, I just love what I do, and I just really want the recognition for the profession that I love.